The university has been extremely fortunate today to have Jesse Eisenberg and Anna Strout in our presence. Although many of us are aware of Jesse's remarkable accomplishments as an actor, playwright, and writer, Anna, who directs events and special projects with the Urban Arts Partnership, has been instrumental in helping to arrange this visit. The Urban Arts Partnership is one of the leading nonprofit organizations in the United States dedicated to bringing the performing arts to public schools while also creating important after-school programs in New York and Los Angeles. And it has been a privilege to have her share her wisdom with us during the visit. I need to also thank Kathy O'Gorman, Mark Riley, Joanne Diaz, Colleen Harold, Christine Horner, Luke Roth, Emily Brown, Tom Quinn, Ann Aubrey, Kim Hill, Thad Sutter, and especially Colin Stewart and his staff for helping to make Jesse and Anna's visit a big success. For those of you who may be only peripherally aware or unaware of the IWU Center for Human Rights and Social Justice, over the past 2.5 years, we've been fortunate to sponsor a number of activities that help put social justice concerns at the forefront of what we do as a liberal arts university. Eminent speakers, including Anthony Arnov, co-producer for the Academy Award-nominated film Dirty Wars, Rafia Zakaria, author, Pakistani journalist, and member of the U.S. Amnesty International Board of Directors, philosopher and public intellectual Martha Nussbaum, and Academy Award-nominated independent film director and author John Sayles, along with award-winning producer Maggie Renzi, have come to our campus and have enlightened us with their wisdom and generosity. This year, local activist and professor Mary Campbell has spoken about Labyrinth Outreach Services for Women, an organization dedicated to helping women who've been incarcerated. And on November 9th, writer, researcher, and activist James Kilgore of the University of Illinois will be delivering a talk based upon his recently published book, Understanding Mass Incarceration, A People's Guide to the Key Civil Rights Struggle of Our Time. At the same time, center activities involving the Scholars at Risk Advocacy Seminar, the Peace Fellows Program, the Human Rights Workshop, and the Undergraduate Human Rights Research Workshop are ongoing. So if you're interested in becoming more involved in center work, you're encouraged to fill out a sign-up sheet at the book signing table after our conversation with Jesse is concluded on your right. Unfortunately, we've run out of books for purchase, but if you've had the prescience to purchase one of Jesse's copies in advance, please come by and meet him after the conversation is concluded. The structure of the conversation will be as follows. Our own Joanne Diaz, who is one of this country's most accomplished authors and poets, will interview Jesse for a few minutes about the stories in Bream Gives Me Hiccups. We will then throw the floor open to questions to Jesse about his writing and film work, and then there will be the table where he'll sign copies of the pre-purchased books. There's no need to speak at length of Jesse Eisenberg's remarkable talent in so many different venues, but the question may arise as to what the connection is between Jesse's work and his Center for Human Rights and Social Justice. Some may point to his involvement in the dramatic presentation Theater of War, where the use of Greek tragedy before an audience of soldiers who've returned from Iraq and Afghanistan highlighted the ways in which our soldiers confront the same issues that were present 2,500 years ago, as evidence for his dedication to social justice issues. Others may point to his personal generosity in supporting the Middle Way House, a shelter protecting women and children against domestic violence in Bloomington, Indiana, in the same way, or his longstanding support for animal rights. But when one examines his art and sees how in his performances he displays an authenticity that speaks to our human vulnerabilities and failings, one understands that we are witnessing the display of a unique gift that arouses our own empathy and greater understanding of the human condition as enhanced through moral questioning. In Bream Gives Me Hiccups, Jesse comments upon the pain and joy of life's ordinary events in ways that at times allow us to laugh out loud but also feel pathos. For the 9-year-old restaurant critic who is wise behind his years in understanding his parents' needs and weaknesses, the first-year college student who experiences all of the problems of roommate adjustment and fitting in, of which we are all very aware, as well as the awkwardness of gender roles and the limitations of conventional assumptions involving dating and personal encounters. There is, of course, much more in this brilliant collection of stories, essays, and vignettes, some of which I hope we will explore tonight. In any event, Jesse Eisenberg is not only a quintessential liberal arts person, but an individual who, through his art, craft, and personal engagement, exemplifies all of the values we associate with what an appreciation for human rights and social justice must entail. For all of these reasons, I am deeply honored to present Jesse Eisenberg and Joanne Diaz.
Hi. Hello. Well, Joanne quit, but otherwise, I'll do it myself.
I'm back.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I don't know what else is playing here at the university. We heard Radiohead was at the other theater, but thank you so much for coming here, and thank you for that nice introduction. I'll try to live up to it now.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to talk with me and to talk with students and answer their questions.
Oh, yeah.
I have a few questions for you. I loved Bream Gives Me Hiccups. It was so interesting. It's so varied and such a pleasure to read. And when we were talking to each other up there, I was just interested in how many different kinds of personae you're able to inhabit in the book. I was most moved by, as Irv was saying, the 9-year-old boy. You speak from the perspective of a 9-year-old boy who's giving restaurant reviews, but in the process we learn about his mother who's in so much emotional trouble. You take on the persona of a college freshman who's having all sorts of identity crises and writing to her guidance counselor. And I'm struck by, the etymology of the word person and persona, which is mask, right? It's from the Latin word for mask. And I think about how actors take on masks each time they perform a role. And I wonder if you could talk about how, if at all, writing for you has any relationship to acting or performing. Is writing a kind of performance? And how is it different from you, for you? How does it feed something in you that maybe acting doesn't?
Thank you very much. Well, I know we've only just met, but if you get to know me, you'll understand that my emotional inner life is a 9-year-old boy. So that's probably what accounts for that acute insight into his life. I probably feel like a lot of people here, like you feel like, I feel like wildly different people in different situations, obviously. I mean, there was, I can't remember who said, we have as many personalities as people we know. And for an actor, that's maybe a little more explicitly the case, and more emphasized. And writing as well, which is why I like to write from different characters' perspectives. I write plays, so you're writing from multiple characters, dialogue, and then in this book it's many different characters. I like it because to me it feels at once totally similar, that they're all kind of experiencing, as you said, like crises of identity, kind of dealing with like a profound insecurity and some kind of confusing arrogance. And I like to write about those kind of things because I guess that's probably what I struggle with. And it's cheaper than going to a therapist. You could sit at home and kind of work out your deepest, weirdest feelings. And if you have a sense of story or if you have a sense of humor, you can put it into a context that people enjoy. When I'm acting in a movie, for example, the character is sad. Like I feel sad. I mainly feel sad all day, and then when I have to do a movie, sometimes it's appropriate to have that feeling, but otherwise, you're not supposed to just cry at the Starbucks. So acting
I
gives
wish
me
someone had told me that a long time
Yeah,
ago,
yeah, yeah.
because that happens a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I think we can end it there. Okay. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, so this can be very cathartic as well. Yes. Oh, also, just one more thing to what you said, because you were talking about, yes, the Latin word for persona, meaning mask. One of the great things they do, and I was at the theater program earlier, and we had a very wonderful conversation. One of the things that we didn't talk about was this great exercise you could do in acting class, where you actually wear a mask, and it's the strangest experience. It just brings out this other side of yourself. The kind of your self-consciousness goes away. And there was a story on Radiolab, I don't know if anybody listens to that, where this girl was talking about how this girl was this very shy, awkward girl, and then she became the mascot for the local high school football team, and she would go down to she would perform in the bear costume, and she was doing cartwheels. She didn't even know how to do a cartwheel. She's never done a cartwheel in her life. But behind this mask, behind this other persona, she had the safety of being able to try a cartwheel and realizing she could do it, and to have the kind of just the outgoing personality that she normally censors.
I love what you're saying, because it helps me understand why masks would have been so valuable in ancient Greek drama, right? That was a part of the very foundations of drama in the West. And I love what you're saying about the kind of license that you can take when you take on a different persona, and the kind of control that you can have over uncontrollable events just by virtue of writing about them. That seems like a very compelling thing that you can do. Do you feel like you have that kind of control as an actor? It seems like you wouldn't, because someone else has written that script for you, unless you're the writer, right? So I'm just imagining you in, say, a movie like Social Network, getting the lines and sort of memorizing them and inhabiting them. Would you say that there's less control in that situation for you as an actor?
No, I would say it's a different kind of control. Like, you, as an actor in somebody else's project, you say their lines, and maybe you stand where they tell you to stand sometimes, but you can feel anything you want to feel. And an actor who really enjoys that part of it will find that there is no bottom of the well for emotional creativity that exists whether or not you wrote it. So I do plays every 2 years that I wrote in New York. We do like 90 shows or something, and each one of those performances I still feel as constricted because I'm saying my lines, but you still have to stand on marks, and there's a light going there. So you have to still account for the very specific rules of that medium. But you always have control over what you feel. I find oftentimes, like acting in a movie, like even a movie that's like The Social Network is written by this guy, Aaron Sorkin. He's a very specific writer. You don't want to change any of those words, but he doesn't control the kind of emotion you're bringing to it, and that's up to the actors, and it could be almost anything you want.
Speaking of emotion and acting, I'm very, very interested in hearing about your work with the Theater of War. And I was just reading about it actually in the New York Times book review about Brian Dory's, his work with that. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that, we're all aware that we will be dealing with the aftermath of the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan for the rest of our lives. And by that I mean, even when the wars have come to an end, the men and women who have been injured, whether emotionally and psychologically with post-traumatic stress disorder, or physically with long-term chronic diseases and disability, they will wear those marks for the rest of their lives, and we will have to attend to them and help them and provide services for them. And so I'm very intrigued by your work with those veterans, and I wonder if you could talk a bit more about that and just describe it for all of us.
Well, so like we would perform these Greek plays for either families of or veterans, or in some cases like doctors, people unrelated to combat. And what and also we went to a town that was like ravaged by like meth addiction. So it's this really interesting thing. that when you do these plays, they're Greek plays, they take place during like the Trojan War, so there's an element of combat at the heart of a lot of these plays. But what's really interesting is that by like emoting on stage, in something that's kind of tangentially related to what they suffered, and in some cases less than tangentially, but it kind of inspires this reaction and a dialogue after the plays are over to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, to talk about what it's like to, lose family, to talk about what it's like to have a family member come back and, in one case, like, brutalize the family, because they're suffering from the stresses. And so it's really interesting. But what I took away from it more broadly is that when, like I was talking earlier about the kind of catharsis of acting or writing, and it sounds very self-centered, and if you know me, you'll know that it is. But there's this other element to it, which is accidentally not self-centered, which is that it, in some way, allows other people to experience their own emotions, even if it's totally unrelated to what you're talking about. But just by virtue of like seeing people in dramatic situations allows for a catharsis from the audience. I guess that's what accounts for the success of like group therapy and AA. That's why people go there and feel some relief, because you're kind of experiencing what you come to discover everybody experiences.
I have a question about your writing time, and that is, you're so busy, even in between projects, you must always be preparing for a new one, whether you're writing your own next play or performing in your next film. How do you find time to write, and where do you do it? I think that I'm probably not alone in this. I have a fantasy of an ideal writing space that has like the perfect fountain pen and a fantastic desk with like a view of the ocean, and that's never materialized. I don't know why. So I'm imagining that you probably have to
There's
write
no ocean here.
Right.
Yeah.
In less than ideal circumstances. So how do you find time to do what you do for writing?
I have like a deceptively busy looking schedule. Like when an actor acts in a movie, they act in it, then they're done, and then they put like posters around in commercials. So it gives people the illusion that I'm still busy. But it had happened a year ago. And I'm not actually in those commercials. That's just a picture of me. And so it looks like I'm so busy when really I go from job to job. Even the most successful actors like find themselves out of work for 6 months. I mean, I'm serious. Like even people you'd think like they probably don't worry for a minute. Like everybody's terrified. I don't know why. It's just the nature of doing freelance work, caring about what you do, and knowing that you're going to at some point age out of desirability. So it's something I think about. So I eat fish eggs to stay young, and I inject myself with a live squid. But other than that, you worry. And so I try to always be doing something, more out of the fear of not being hired rather than the enjoyment of the thing. So I don't hate it, but I someday want to just eat a muffin. But it's hard. I don't have like a normal job where I know I'm going to be working at this particular company. I know I'm going to have like 3 weeks off a year, and I take those 3 weeks and sit somewhere. I literally have like no job security except for having done things and being known for things. But at some point, that's not even seemingly relevant.
So when do you write?
Oh, sorry. I should have just said Thursdays. Well, so a lot of the pieces in the book are like kind of short, like comedy pieces. I was talking about this at the art gallery, so forgive me if you've heard it again, or enjoy it for the second time. Maybe you'll find new things. A lot of the pieces in the book are pieces that are shorter form that like I've written for the New Yorker magazine or McSweeney's. These are what like my friends who write these pieces call like pieces that have to be written within an hour because they're concept-driven pieces. Like one that Irv was talking about. There was one is called "The Post-Gender Normative Man Tries to Pick Up a Woman at a Bar." It's a guy who like is so embarrassed about being a man, and he doesn't want to show that he's like a alpha male, so he keeps apologizing for being a man while picking up a woman at a bar, which is something you kind of have to like not hide your sexuality. So it's like a funny juxtaposition, and if you don't write a piece like that within the hour, then you could spend the week going over it, but it's like such a specific concept. So that is quicker. And then longer form things, like a play takes me like 6 months, and I usually, if I have time off, you get in a zone and you write every day. I also have the luxury that I don't have to, like I can have like a block of time off because, again, it's not by choice. It's just I wasn't hired for 6 months, so you sit down and you have to do something else. Other actors, they make perfumes or something. If you're sitting in the front few rows, you can understand that's not what I do. For those of you in the back, you'll figure it out later. I barely wear deodorant. So so people do that. Actors tend to do that. And if you have some like talents elsewhere, you really try to capitalize on it.
You were talking about how quick you have to be with that initial spurt of creativity with some of the more conceptual pieces, and how important juxtaposition is. And to some extent, I imagine surprise. Right? You seem to want to create a surprise in a lot of the humorous pieces that are in the book. And I wonder, do you just have to kind of keep trying different efforts until you get to that? Or do you sort of kind of keep a tally of all these different contrasts and surprises that you can create? And it's related to the question I was going to ask you up there earlier about genre, right? So we expect one thing as readers, and then you subvert our expectation by creating a surprise. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little.
I think it's the more I understand that, what you just described, and I'm doing a movie now with Woody Allen, who is like the grandfather of all this stuff, of this humor. I'm realizing there's something like culturally specific in like Jewish New York humor, which comes from like Jews can never fully experience like the joy of a situation. They constantly have to remind themselves that bad things are going to occur. That has to do somehow with like the history too. Like we're dancing, but somebody's going to kill us. So everybody dances with like looking over the shoulder. So it's something about that. So in terms of like humorous juxtaposition, now we're less threatened people, so we have to like create the kind of drama because the Cossacks don't really want to hurt us anymore. So it's like a specific thing. Now it's not just related to Jewish people. Obviously, anybody of any race can feel this way, but I hope they don't. But they can. But there's something in that mindset that I grew up with that was not telling me be funny in this way, but it's just the nature of the mindset is that is seeing the kind of irony, kind of self-punishment in an otherwise normal, happy situation.
I have a feeling that there may be some students and perhaps faculty and staff who are here in the audience that may have some questions for you. I have more. I mean, I could just sort of sit here and ask you all sorts of stuff. But, I think that there are some other people that may want to ask you questions about your writing, your acting.
Sure,
so
anything.
Shall we open it up?
Sure.
All right, let's do this. I don't know where Professor Epstein is. Oh, Professor Epstein is in the back. He has a microphone. And if anybody would like to ask a question, if you could just project into that microphone, that would be great.
Is this on? No, good. Jesse.
I'm Bill Flick. I'm a columnist with the Pantograph newspaper here in Bloomington. Been here forever. Was here when David Foster Wallace was teaching 4 blocks to the north. You recently were in a movie, The End of the Tour. Your reflections on David Foster Wallace, how did you study for that part? Is there irony that David Lipsky was an aspiring author, sort of like you are right now? Your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it was interesting. And actually, the chair of your English department, Kathy, took us to the houses that David Foster Wallace lived in, which we attempted to depict in the movie. And what I saw today is that we depicted it the wrong color. But otherwise there was an accuracy. And I really wanted to see his house and also this special place where he lived and wrote. It was, in terms of your question about the irony or the coincidence, at least, of playing a writer. I was playing a writer, and Jason Segel was playing David Foster Wallace. Jason is also a writer. He writes some of those movies that he has been in. And that was very helpful, because I think we can probably relate to some of the experience of, being a creative person in your own room in a very lonely way, as opposed to a lot of actors who experience their creativity in a very public, social way. So we could probably relate to some of that, and the kind of just the strange nuance of competitiveness and jealousy, and that probably everybody feels, but is maybe a specific brand with writing. And let me think if I have any other. Yeah, we saw the house where maybe I shouldn't say anything, because I don't know if it's secretive. But anyway, he lived near Fell Park, and he wrote Infinite Jest there. And it's so interesting to think that he was walking around here. And the influence he had. Yeah.
Hi, Jesse. My name is Kari. I'm a senior here at Wesleyan. Just got off of work, so I'm a little caffeinated. You mentioned you're doing a collaboration with Woody Allen. He has I'm kind of a fan. That's kind of a date breaker. But what's that like working with Woody Allen and his distinct style? And does it bring anything to your creative processes? And just wanting to hear about that.
Well, so Woody Allen has made like 45 movies, I think. So he doesn't really have he doesn't seem to have any interest in like talking about the characters with the actors in a way that actors like to do it, which is to say kind of like inefficient and self-indulgent. Like actors like to go over what was he thinking when he was 6, but like the character just has to go pick up the water and put it over there. And so he doesn't like to do that, because he's just been around it so long. He thinks it's pointless, and he's a better actor than most of us, because he's been in a lot of his movies. He's great. What I like about him is the ease with which he's able to work. He knows, this is like what we were talking about earlier today, he knows really like the very few important things that are in each particular scene. So if the scene is about two characters breaking up with each other, he knows it's not going to matter that there's a painting in the background. Whereas most movies, people haven't made as many movies as him, they think that's important and this is important. And somebody like him, he knows what's important, and he knows how to make that be its best, and everything else is kind of less significant. And he's very funny to be around, but I suspect he's just constantly thinking of movies. He makes one a year. And so you think, well, somebody like that is just constantly thinking of stories, to the point where when you're telling him a story, you could see that his kind of mind has wandered and he's trying to figure out if it has an ending. Not that he wants you to end the story, but if it can have a movie ending. And I once asked him that, what are you thinking about now? And he said, I'm trying to think about if the story you told me has a beginning, middle, and end. I said, yeah, it does, because this happened. He said, yes, but the character's unlikable, so it won't work. So... And that was just the story of my childhood. So that's what's on his mind all the time, which leads me to believe that somebody who's very prolific is just always working. They're not kind of thinking about their work or indulging in it. They're actually just, like Philip Roth, apparently, like he just wrote all day, and then people said, oh, somebody said he wasn't that nice to me. And I said, well, what do you want him to be? He's like standing at a desk all day writing. Why? He's not a social person. That's not what he excels at. I should leave now and go work. Yeah.
Okay, tech crew wanted to know, one, what kind of Lex Luthor can we expect in the next the Batman versus Superman, and then on top of that, Batman or Superman?
Wait, I'm supposed to answer about all 3 characters?
No, what kind of Lex Luthor will we expect, and then do you prefer Batman or Superman?
Oh, then do I prefer it? Oh, I see. I don't have a preference over fictional people. Um, I barely have preferences with real ones. Well, my character will, it's really good. Like, it's really well written. The guy who wrote it is this guy, his only other script was Argo. He's a great writer, and he's not like a comic book guy, so he's really talented. And he wrote this great character. And it's like, I can't really give too much of the plot away because they're so secretive, but the character, as I saw it, is like very, charming and also terrifying. He's like what you would think of a business tycoon who is secretive, somebody who has a social face that's really enjoyable and attractive, not, romantic, but somebody you want to be around, and then maybe also romantically, why not? And then when that person is behind closed doors, you really hope that they're not doing everything you suspect they're doing. So it's a wonderful role. It so happens to be in this like big, exciting movie, but the role is kind of like, worthy of any kind of dramatic movie that's about, modern psychology.
What's up, Jesse? Jarek White, broadcast journalism major at Illinois State University for TV10. This is my photographer, Cassie. 2 questions.
Okay.
Would you say any experiences as an actor or from your childhood or adulthood had any contributions to any ideas in your book?
To what?
To any ideas in your book?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. We were just talking about one because, I grew up in like a vegetarian home, and my sister insists that we have Thanksgiving instead of Thanksgiving, where not only do we not eat turkey, but they rescue turkeys and put the pictures of the rescued turkeys on the table with, and I'm not joking, with little paragraph that says, "This is Bessie." I'm not joking. Bessie likes basketball. It doesn't specify like what position. And then my sister, for 45 minutes before we eat the tofu, she reads what it's like to be a caged animal from the perspective of the animal about to be killed. So what I was talking earlier about, like culturally, like trying to find the tragedy in funny situations. That's the opposite. I was trying to find like something funny about that. And so what's funny about it is this little boy is at this vegan Thanksgiving, and he's kind of contemplating, like he thinks the people are kind of nuts, but he also thinks that some of what they're saying sounds logical. And then he's also saying that he misses his family because his parents are divorced, and he misses that his father used to come here, and he wonders if they had turkey, if dad would come. And he's using it as a jumping off point to think. And as a reader, I know what the reader's reaction is going to be. They're going to be laughing at the people, but then the boy starts to question if they have any valuable ideas. So yeah, stuff like that. If there's anything crazy in your lives and you're a writer, you have no excuse not to use it. That's the best thing. Unless you're going to hurt somebody, then change the name just slightly.
All right, second question.
Yeah.
When people think of Lex Luthor, you are the complete opposite of what they think. What made the directors or casting directors choose you over anybody else? No offense or anything.
I tried to kill the director's aunt, and so they knew. No, I mean, you want, ideally for like an interesting character like that, you want an actor that can bring like a different element to it, not just like be like an evil character. So with a movie like that and a character like that, you want to, have some kind of surprising element. So that's why maybe they would hire me, and I also knew that the way the role was written, I could do it well. It's not like so outlandish in the context of the movie. Maybe in the context of like the canon of those comic books, it's unusual, but not in the context of this movie and the upcoming, movies that they plan to do in this world, because they were trying to create, many films. So it made sense, and as an actor, that's the best opportunity. So a lot of what actors want to do is do different things that they're not known for, and a lot of what movie companies want them to do is the thing that they've already done and are known to do. So this is an example of where I got lucky. Oh, hey, thanks. I wasn't complaining about myself. I was just explaining at great length why I'm doing okay. Yeah.
I guess I'm going to stand. So, can you tell us about how you first found yourself in acting and writing, and then maybe like the first time you found yourself like saying, "Wow, this writing is actually good," or somebody maybe told you that?
It's a really strange circumstance, actually. I went to a performing arts high school, and I started watching Woody Allen movies, and then I was like 16, and I decided to write a script about Woody Allen at 16, but in modern day life, and I could play him. And somebody at the school read it, and they sent it to like an agent, and the agent liked it and sent it to somebody else, and it got like some traction. I felt very good about it, and then about a month later, I got a cease and desist letter from Woody Allen's lawyers saying if I do it, they'll sue me to the fullest extent of the law, which apparently is very full. And so, so I didn't do anything. And then like 2 months later, I got another letter, like a 16-year-old kid. Like the first letter worked, but they wanted to send a second one. I don't know why. And so that was when I felt like I could write something that people liked. I then had to think of something that also wouldn't get me in trouble. So I was trying to think of, and everything I've written has got me into little trouble, whether it be with friends. Oh, why did you write about me? And I said, actually, that's not you, but the worst character is you, but you didn't recognize it. But or family, revealing family things. But if you do it with a sensitivity or something, I think you can get away from it. As an actor, I don't watch the movies I've been in, and I act in plays where you can't see the things. So I kind of just go by if I'm feeling okay about it. That's the only judge. And then if I stop getting hired, then I should reevaluate what am I doing wrong. But I don't like to watch myself because I don't like to judge myself as an outsider. So if I felt good that day in the movie, then I'm satisfied, and it makes me want to keep doing it. If I felt bad, even if the scene turned out really well for whatever reason, that there are a million elements involved, I still feel horrible. So I just use my own barometer. Yeah, anybody? I don't want to choose. Yeah, okay, somebody choose. Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me here. Oh, yeah. Okay, get to the microphone.
Thank you very much. When you hosted SNL, I was wondering if you could tell us about that week, how that went, and what your favorite part of that experience was.
Oh yeah, Saturday Night Live. Right, I hosted it once. It's the strangest environment because Saturday Night Live is made up of probably the most talented comedic actors in the world, the most talented comedic writers in the world, and they're all put in the same room, and they have like 7 sketches that are going to get on air that night, and there's like 30 people on both teams writing and acting. So it's this very stressful environment. No, I was not a part of that because I was just like the guest, so I didn't have to deal with all that stuff. But it's a very strange environment. I feel very lucky to have been able to bypass that as a humor writer because the environment is, while it makes you stronger as a writer, it can also be really discouraging, I imagine, because it's so stressful. As an actor there, you're not expected to be funny or do anything of value or anything interesting. So anything that you do that's semi-funny or something, they think you're great. Because mostly they have, like, Tom Brady hosts that no one thinks he's going to be funny, you know. So I think they had similar expectations with me. So just as the Patriots would have if I were playing quarterback, for example. So so it's an exhilarating experience for me. That said, the environment there was just the most stressful environment. Just think of like the best mathematicians in a room, and they only get to do one problem a day. I don't know anything about math. That's yeah, but that's what it'd be like. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Huge fan from everything from like Education of Charlie Banks to Adventureland to Social Network. I kind of want to talk about Social Network though, because you seem like a really nice guy, but Mark Zuckerberg, the character you played in Social Network, was not great. And then Lex Luthor, also probably, I'm assuming, like not a great guy.
Yeah.
How do you like compartmentalize that, I guess is the question.
Well, the real trick is that those people don't think they're bad people. Those people think they're as good as the best person. They just, so that's, you know, it's the bad acting choice to think the character's bad and then do that. It's the good acting choice to say, I'm the hero of my own story, which I think people who do bad things probably feel, unless you have, I don't know, some horrible thing. But like those characters are, well, Lex Luthor's a kind of not, he's not probably healthy, but those characters think they're doing a good thing. So that's what you try to tap into. And then the rest of the stuff will do its work for you. The context you're in, the dialogue, that will maybe make you look less than good. But if you feel, no, I'm doing this right, and you're feeling angry, it will come across as maybe malevolent in some effective way, but that's not the feeling the actor should have. Yeah, thanks.
Have you met Mark Zuckerberg?
I met him for like 5 minutes once, and so when I was doing that movie, totally unrelated. In fact, if they knew, it probably wouldn't have happened. But my cousin got a job working at Facebook, so it was luckily the thing that we had in common that we could talk about. Oh, how's your cousin? He's good. How's your employee? Good. So, thank God, because otherwise it could have been so uncomfortable.
So you weren't in like a cage fight together?
Yeah, no. In fact, I was driving up to, when we were rehearsing for the movie, I got off work a little early on a Friday, and I said, I'm driving up to Facebook to just go into the offices. And then as I was like 2 hours outside of LA, going up to Palo Alto where the offices were, I got a call. I got a call from the producers, like yelling at me, like, you can't do that. They're not talking to us. So I lost my opportunity to meet him. I was going rogue, So I thought, how could you do a part without meeting somebody? And then I discovered how.
Hi, Jesse. My name is Brian. I'm a junior here. I'm a particular fan of The Social Network, and I'm just really curious, what was it like, and you mentioned this earlier, about working with an Aaron Sorkin screenplay and really mastering that like rapid-fire dialogue, especially in that first scene with you and Rooney Mara. What was it like, and how'd you like work on mastering it so it was like back and forth?
Well, so my background is in theater acting, where it's typical that you would do like 100 pages of dialogue every night, night after night after night in a play. And then movie acting, 90% of it, this is not an exaggeration, is like half a page of dialogue and something is exploding behind you. And so that was comfortable for me. It's very uncomfortable for me to do the half a page of thing, because you can't really get into it or feel like the, let's say, layers of experience that you want to have. So for me, it was great to do a movie that felt like a play. The End of the Tour that's out now, the David Foster Wallace, is similar. It was written by Donald Margulies, who's a playwright, and it's based on Wallace's conversations with my character Lipsky, and so they're long conversations. Those things are rare in movies, but to me, those are the more comfortable things to do. Aaron Sorkin's he's such a great writer. And especially for a character like mine, who can think really quickly, because Aaron can. So I don't know what the experience is playing other roles. I'm sure they're great too, but for me it was a really unusually perfect combination of a writer's mind with a character's pattern. Yeah, thanks.
Hello. As such a huge fan of movies, I'm curious if there was a specific film or actor that inspired you to go into acting.
Not really. We didn't really grow up watching like movies in the house. It was not really. I mean, I didn't grow up in like a cult. We just didn't watch them.
Are you sure?
Yeah. We churned butter every day, but that seemed normal. And we ate tinctures. Not really. Again, I mean, not to bring up Woody Allen so much, but it was a unique experience to see him at like 15 years old when I started watching his movies and realized that somebody can kind of write about everything they're thinking about without having to like tailor it to a mass audience. Like, he was just writing about all the things he was interested in. He wasn't censoring himself to appeal to people who didn't know who Freud was or something. And it's not so confusing. He's not writing like with such great, not everything is, academic, sophisticated themes, but it's just he's not censoring himself. So that was inspiring. The only other like acting I really liked was this guy, Ricky Gervais, did The Office. Have you seen the show? The English comedy show. And this acting to me, I'd like never seen anything like it. I thought it was so great that I would watch it like in slow motion to see what he's doing with his face. I mean, to me, that character is like a perfect combination of like what you were asking, like playing like a mean-spirited role, but he's doing it with such sweetness, you know, and it's so sad and sweet. And so he was doing it, and it's so funny, but never fake.
I was wondering if you have a favorite book or if like a couple favorite books that particularly inspire you.
Well, yeah, there's this. Well, I like the writer Philip Roth, and we were talking about this earlier. Yeah, he wrote this great book, which was a nonfiction book about the last years of his father's life and kind of taking care of his ailing father. And the reason it was so good is because it's this writer who we know from fiction who crafts all these very interesting stories, and you know that now he's writing not only a very real story, but a very difficult story to tell about like losing his father. And to me, it was so interesting because it was not only a great book, but it was a really great insight into how a writer contextualizes his own life, especially a writer of fiction contextualizing their own life. Because, for example, there's a scene where Philip Roth, he says, I'm in my dad's I'm in my dad's bathroom, and he has like 30 pills in his cabinet, and he names all the pills, like 30 pills and creams and all this stuff, because the guy was really sick. And on the one hand, you're reading it thinking, wow, these details are so great, and on the other hand, you're thinking, this guy who is standing in his father's bathroom noting this down, knowing he's going to publish a book about it. And is it exploitation? Is it important to tell? It just raises all these interesting questions. And the book is also really great to read. Another book I've loved in the last few years was The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. This is by Junot Diaz. He's a Dominican writer who wrote about the experience of like being a Dominican immigrant in multiple generations. And that was really great, especially if you're interested in like world politics or Caribbean or Latin American culture. That was really interesting too.
Hi. Whenever I write a poem or a story or anything, I spend a lot of time editing it. When do you know that you're done finally with a piece of work? Like, are you tempted to go back and tamper with it, or like, when do you know you're finished?
Well, there's probably no real answer because it's a created thing. So I guess there probably is no perfect time to finish it. I suppose you could always make something, maybe always change something, although I find a lot of times you make lateral moves, not necessarily improvements. Although my dad always said, you can never overthink something, you could just think about it incorrectly. Because I would say, oh, I'm probably overthinking this, and he would say, no, that doesn't make any sense. You can be thinking about it incorrectly, but you know, I don't think if somebody told Einstein he's overthinking relativity, he'd probably say like, no, I'm getting to something even better. Like, so I'm not comparing myself to my father, but comparing myself to Einstein. And so maybe never. When do you finish poetry? Because poetry is even more abstract than stories. I know there's some ending in mind.
I don't know either, and in fact, even when things are published, I still change them. And I think I remember, was it Paul Valéry who said that poems aren't finished, they're abandoned?
Yeah.
So I think you just kind of have to walk away and call it a day at a certain point. Yeah. And I think maybe you think about it as the best of what you were able to do at a certain time in your life.
That's what, in fact, David Foster Wallace said about Infinite Jest, which is a strange thing to say about that book, that because it seems overly accounted for. And he said, this is the best that I could do in those years in that place.
Hi. I just had a quick question, a follow-up to that other one. Once you know you're done with your writings and everything, how do you decide where to send them or who to send them to? Where's the best place to get your works out? I mean, do you just pick a place out of the yellow books, or what do you do?
Yellow books, yeah.
Yeah.
I send them to plumbing companies. Well, there's a great online publisher called McSweeney's, which when I discovered that, it's McSweeney's.net. It was started by Dave Eggers. When I discovered that, it really opened a lot of doors for me. And I submitted to them for years and was rejected, and it allowed me to kind of hone what I do because I wasn't accepted immediately, so I had to make it better. And then I started writing for the New Yorker magazine, which is similar format but in magazine form. And those two places are great. The New Yorker is a kind of thicker glass ceiling to break through, but similar talents write for both. I'm not really sure about other places, but that was never really my goal. I kind of would write for 3 friends and send it out. That sounds like false modesty. I did want to be published, but my main enjoyment out of it is I send it to 3 friends, and I love this line, and then we talk about it another time. And so that's the most enjoyable thing, which is to say, that's a part of the fun experience of it.
Hey Jesse, big fan. My question is about The Social Network. I love that role that you were in, but my question is, with a specific writer that Aaron Sorkin is, did you use anything for inspiration for that role, or was there a person in another movie that kind of you took on while trying to get that role down?
Yeah, I somehow saw that show, The Office, right before we filmed that movie, and I thought that character, it was so funny that I tried to kind of I don't know, I just thought it was so funny, so I was kind of behaving like him, and then it somehow dovetailed with that movie because it was this character who's struggling to keep his company afloat. Now one guy is a kind of bumbling English office guy, and the other one's a really brilliant a tech leader, but there were some similar things that made me laugh, and also the pathos behind those two characters just seemed similar to me. A guy who's kind of unsure and seemingly prematurely in charge of an organization. So that's what I was thinking about. And then of course you watch the real, the real person, and you think, oh, here's this very capable, brilliant person. Yes, betrays some kind of insecurity and displays some anxiousness or nervousness in public, but is ultimately a brilliant and very accomplished person.
I think we have time for probably 2 more questions. Okay. Yeah? All right.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm a senior nursing major here. When Dr. Epstein was introducing you earlier, he mentioned your contributions to the women's shelter in Bloomington, Indiana. And just kind of being a nursing major and a woman, I'm really interested in women's health and women's rights. And I kind of wondered how you connected that to social activism, how you were drawn to that particular place to give to and invest in, and just what else you can say about your own social activism.
So Middle Way House is a domestic violence shelter and transitional housing unit in the other Bloomington in Indiana. And although it's strange to call it a rival when we're talking about domestic violence, that's the other domestic violence shelter. It's not like a basketball team. And so, yes, I've been involved with them for maybe a decade because my girlfriend's mother, she's the executive director there. So I've seen it grow from a single-family house to this huge, sprawling, multi-building organization that not only takes in victims of domestic violence, but also educates the schools in southern Indiana about the effects of domestic violence, and has a child care program, has the transitional housing unit for women to get back into the workforce. They work at a bakery where they make foods that are sold to the local restaurants, and then the money goes to the women, so it gives the women a sense of kind of reintegrating into society before they have to physically, and it's just the most incredible place. It seems like impossible to have any kind of public platform like I have and know about a place like that intimately and not be involved with it and not be interested in it. So yes, if anybody's interested, they have wonderful volunteer programs. If anybody's from Indiana, it's nearby. It's really a fantastic place, and they're doing amazing work for southern Indiana.
Hello. Hi. You mentioned you have a background in theater. How was the transition from doing stage work and then going into cinema?
Plays, I do like one play every 2 years. I just finished one. My feeling about, like, I always think like the perfect analogy is like when you're in a play with people, it's like being on like a life raft. And then when you're in a movie with people, it's like being on a yacht. Like, plays are this like grueling, arduous thing. Like, it pays, I mean, this is not a weird exaggeration, but it pays less than minimum wage based on the nature of the union rules in New York. So it actually pays like, so it doesn't compensate you in the way, it doesn't pay in the way a movie does, obviously, and it's just exhausting and draining, but people love it. It's hard to almost articulate why. Movies, when I started acting in movies, I thought like, this is it, that's it, this is all we have to do. It just seems so easy. And then you start to discover there's some difficulties, but nothing compared to what it is acting in a play. It feels strange almost to hear people kind of lament the work in a movie, because it just seems like the totally disproportionate ratio of effort to credit. You put in a few hours and you're lauded for months, and the theater is the exact opposite. It's like the most grueling thing, and 25 people see it. And I prefer doing that, but I couldn't live in New York. Couldn't.
We could ask you questions all night long.
Yeah.
You are such a pleasure to talk to and to listen to. And thank you for coming to visit us and to share your work and ideas. Could you please join me in thanking Jesse Eisenberg?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming here. Everything.
And for those of you that you want Jesse to sign, come right over here. And for those of you who are more interested in the Center for Human Rights and Social Justice, feel free to sign up here.
Thanks. That was so nice. Thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much. Oh, good. Hi.
Hi. Wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading this. Yes. Yes, please do.